The vacuum cleaner made an awful sound, then died with a pathetic whimper in Lucas Vaughn's hands. He stared at the useless machine, surrounded by the chaos of his penthouse dishes piled in the sink, clothes scattered across furniture, and dust collecting on every surface. The 34-year-old shipping magnate could command a fleet of cargo vessels across the world's oceans, but apparently couldn't manage to keep his own living space habitable. Lucas ran his hands through his dark hair and tossed the vacuum aside. His assistant had warned him this would happen when his housekeeper of 8 years retired last month. He'd brushed off Deanne's concerns, certain he could manage on his own. After all, how hard could it be to maintain one penthouse? 3 weeks later, he had his humbling answer. He pulled out his phone and called Deanne. "I need a cleaner, today if possible." "I told you so," Deanne replied, not bothering to hide her smugness. "I'll make some calls." 4 hours later, his doorbell rang. Lucas opened it to find a petite woman with honey blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing simple black pants and a blue button-down shirt. She carried a large canvas tote filled with cleaning supplies. "Mr. Vaughn, I'm Tessa Bell from Clean Sweep Services. Your assistant called about an emergency cleaning." Her eyes, a warm hazel that reminded him of autumn, widened slightly as she took in the state of his penthouse. "Is it that bad?" Lucas asked, suddenly embarrassed by the mess. Tessa's professional smile never faltered. "I've seen worse." "May I come in?" He stepped aside, watching as she surveyed his 5,000-square-foot disaster zone with a practiced eye. "Your assistant mentioned you need regular service, not just a one-time cleanup." "Yes," Lucas confirmed. "The previous housekeeper retired. I've been struggling." Tessa set down her tote and pulled out a tablet. "I'll need to do an assessment to provide an accurate quote. Do you mind if I look around? Be my guest." As she moved through the penthouse, making notes on her tablet, Lucas found himself watching her. There was something refreshingly straightforward about Tessa. No fake smiles or excessive flattery that he often encountered. She was all business, focused on the task at hand. "Your place is beautiful," she commented, running a finger along a dusty shelf. "Great views of the harbor." "Thank you." "It's convenient for work." Lucas leaned against the doorframe of his home office, watching as she inspected the bookshelves. "Shipping, right? Your assistant mentioned it." "Yes, Vaughn Maritime." He waited for the usual reaction, the widened eyes, the sudden shift in demeanor when people realized exactly how wealthy he was. But Tessa just nodded. "Interesting industry. My dad worked the docks for 30 years before retiring." She moved to the next room, leaving Lucas slightly off balance. People usually wanted to know more about his company, his success, his wealth. Tessa seemed more interested in the state of his baseboards. After completing her assessment, she presented him with a quote. "I can come 3 times a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays if that works for you. I'll provide all supplies except any specialty items for unique materials." Lucas glanced at the figure. It was more than reasonable. "That's fine. When can you start?" "Tomorrow, if that works for you. I have an opening at 9 a.m. "Perfect." Tessa packed up her supplies and headed for the door. "See you tomorrow, Mr. Vaughn." After she left, Lucas realized she was the first person in months who hadn't tried to impress him, flatter him, or get something from him beyond the stated business arrangement. It was refreshing. The next morning, Tessa arrived precisely at 9 a.m. Lucas had cleared his schedule to work from home, partly to observe her work and partly because he was embarrassed by the state of the penthouse. She arrived dressed similarly to the day before, but with her hair in a braid. "Good morning, Mr. Vaughn." "Good morning." "I'll be working in my office if you need anything." "I'll try not to disturb you," she promised, already pulling on rubber gloves. Despite his intentions to work, Lucas found himself periodically checking on Tessa's progress. She moved efficiently from room to room, transforming his chaotic space into something orderly. By lunchtime, the kitchen was spotless, the living room decluttered, and the guest bathroom gleaming. "Would you like some lunch?" Lucas offered when he spotted her taking a water break. "I was going to order something." Tessa looked surprised. That's kind, but I brought my lunch. Of course. Feel free to use the kitchen table. During her lunch break, Lucas couldn't help but notice how she pulled out a homemade sandwich and an apple, eating quickly while reading something on her phone. No wasted time, no unnecessary conversation. Just focused efficiency. By the end of the day, his penthouse was transformed. Surfaces gleamed, floors shone, and everything smelled clean and fresh. "This is amazing," Lucas said, surveying the space. "I don't think it's been this clean since I moved in." Tessa smiled, a genuine expression that reached her eyes. "Thank you. I left a list of some specialty cleaning products that might be good for some of your furniture. Nothing urgent, but they'll help maintain things long-term. I'll have my assistant order them." "Great. See you Wednesday, Mr. Vaughn." For the next 2 weeks, the pattern continued. Tessa arrived punctually, worked diligently, and left his home immaculate. Lucas found himself looking forward to her visits, though he couldn't quite articulate why. On the third Monday, Lucas was on a conference call when he heard a crash from the kitchen. He excused himself and hurried to find Tessa standing amid shards of broken glass, looking mortified. "I'm so sorry," she said, clearly distressed. "It slipped. I'll replace it, of course." Lucas recognized the broken decanter as part of a set he'd received as a gift. "Don't worry about it. It was just gathering dust anyway. But it looks expensive, really, it's fine." He reached for the broom she was holding. "Let me help clean this up." "That's not necessary," she protested. "This is my job, I insist. My call was boring anyway." Together they swept up the glass, and Lucas found himself enjoying the simple domestic task. When they finished, he impulsively asked, "Would you like some coffee? I just got a new machine that supposedly makes barista-quality drinks." Tessa hesitated, then nodded. "That would be nice, thank you." While the machine whirred and hissed, Lucas learned that Tessa had started her cleaning business 3 years ago after being laid off from her office manager position. "Best thing that ever happened to me, honestly," she said, accepting the cappuccino he handed her. "I make my own hours, choose my clients, and make better money." "How many clients do you have?" Lucas asked, genuinely curious. 15 regulars plus occasional one-time jobs. "I'm actually at capacity now, had to turn down 3 new clients last week." Lucas felt an unexpected sense of privilege knowing she'd accepted him as a client. "Lucky me then." Tessa smiled, and for the first time, Lucas noticed a small dimple in her right cheek. "You're easier than most. Some clients follow me around pointing out spots I've missed or leave passive-aggressive notes. People actually do that. Oh, you'd be surprised." She glanced at her watch. "I should get back to work." After she left that day, Lucas realized they'd talked for nearly 30 minutes. He couldn't remember the last time he'd had such an unguarded conversation with someone who wasn't trying to sell him something or impress him. On Wednesday, Lucas left a small box of premium chocolates with a note. "To replace the boring conference call you saved me from. LV." When he returned home that evening, he found a thank you note from Tessa and noticed she'd arranged his bookshelves by topic and color, creating an aesthetically pleasing display he'd never have thought of himself. Friday morning, Lucas woke with a pounding headache and fever. He texted Tessa to reschedule, not wanting to get her sick. 20 minutes later, his doorbell rang. Through the intercom, he heard her voice. "I brought soup and medicine. You don't have to let me in, but I thought you might need these." Touched by the gesture, Lucas buzzed her up. When he opened the door, he knew he looked terrible, unshaven, pale, with bloodshot eyes. Tessa didn't flinch. "You look awful. Have you taken anything for the fever?" "Not yet," he admitted. "I was going to go to the pharmacy later." She handed him a bag. Fever reducer, tissues, throat lozenges, and homemade chicken soup. "My grandmother's recipe." "You didn't have to do this, I know, but being sick alone is the worst." She stepped back. "Get some rest. Text if you need anything else." Before she could leave, Lucas asked, "Why are you being so kind? This isn't part of your job." Tessa paused. "Because you treat me like a person, not just a service provider. That's rare in my line of work." After she left, Lucas sat with her words, realizing how few genuine human connections he'd maintained since his company had taken off 7 years ago. His life had become a series of transactions, negotiations, and strategic relationships. When had he last done something kind without an agenda? The soup was delicious, rich with vegetables and herbs that soothed his throat. He texted Tessa his thanks, and they exchanged a few messages about remedies for colds. It felt normal, friendly, something his life had been missing. By Monday, Lucas had recovered but found himself nervous about seeing Tessa. Their dynamic had shifted from purely professional to something more personal. When she arrived, he thanked her again for the soup. "It was nothing," she insisted. "My mom makes a batch every Sunday and I always have some in my freezer." Well, it made a difference. "Thank you." Over the next few weeks, their Monday coffee breaks became a ritual, 15 minutes where they talked about everything from books to travel to current events. Lucas learned that Tessa had a degree in English literature, loved hiking, and volunteered at an animal shelter on Sundays. She was saving to buy a small house, determined to build equity instead of throwing money away on rent. Lucas found himself sharing more than he normally would stories about growing up in a middle-class family, his struggles building his business, and the loneliness that came with success. "People see the penthouse and the wealth, but they don't understand the work behind it," he confided one day. "Or they only want to be around me because of what I can do for them," Tessa nodded. "That's why I'm careful about which clients I take on. Money doesn't guarantee decency." "Am I a decent client?" Lucas asked, half joking. Her smile was genuine. "One of my favorites, actually." The admission sent an unexpected thrill through him. Lucas had dated casually over the years, but his relationships never lasted. Women were either too interested in his wealth or intimidated by his schedule. With Tessa, conversations flowed naturally. She challenged his perspectives, made him laugh, and never seemed impressed by his status. One Monday in early December, Lucas returned from a business lunch to find Tessa standing on a ladder in his living room, attempting to dust a high shelf. "Be careful," he called, startling her. The ladder wobbled and Lucas rushed forward, steadying it with his hands. "Sorry about that." "No, it's fine." Tessa looked down at him, their faces unexpectedly close. "I didn't hear you come in." For a moment they remained frozen, her on the ladder, him supporting it, their eyes locked. Lucas felt something shift in the air between them. "Let me help you down," he said, offering his hand. Tessa hesitated, then placed her palm in his. The simple contact sent a jolt of awareness through him. As she stepped off the ladder, her foot caught and she stumbled forward. Lucas caught her against his chest, his arms instinctively wrapping around her waist. "Sorry," she murmured, looking up at him with widened eyes. Lucas knew he should release her, maintain professional boundaries. Instead, he found himself noticing the flecks of gold in her hazel eyes, the light freckles across her nose, the soft curve of her lips. "Lucas," she said softly the first time she'd used his first name. The sound broke the spell. He stepped back, clearing his throat. "Are you okay?" "Yes." "Thank you." Tessa straightened her shirt, her cheeks flushed. The moment had passed, but something fundamental had changed. Lucas spent the rest of the afternoon in his office, trying to focus on work while his mind kept drifting to the feel of Tessa in his arms. That evening, after she'd left, Lucas paced his immaculate apartment, debating what to do. He was attracted to Tessa, that much was clear, but she worked for him. The power imbalance made any potential relationship complicated. What if she felt obligated? What if she was just being friendly because he was a client by Wednesday? Lucas had convinced himself to maintain professional boundaries. When Tessa arrived, he made sure to be on a call, waving hello but keeping his distance. He noticed her puzzled expression but told himself it was for the best. Friday followed the same pattern. Lucas kept busy, avoiding their usual interactions. When Tessa was preparing to leave, she knocked on his office door. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "You've seemed distant this week." Lucas looked up from his computer, struck by the genuine concern in her expression. "Everything's fine, just busy with year-end reports." Oh, of course, she hesitated. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't done something wrong. Not at all, he assured her. You're perfect, I mean, your work is perfect. A small smile curved her lips. Good to know. Have a nice weekend, Lucas. After she left, Lucas buried his face in his hands. You're perfect. Could he have been more obvious? The weekend dragged, filled with second-guessing and overthinking. By Monday morning, Lucas had decided to address the situation directly. When Tessa arrived, he invited her to join him for coffee immediately. I want to apologize for being distant last week, he said as he handed her a cappuccino. The truth is, I've been struggling with something. Tessa waited, her expression guarded. I find myself looking forward to the days you're here, Lucas continued, not just because you make my home livable, but because I enjoy your company, a lot. I enjoy your company too, she said carefully. The thing is, I don't want to make you uncomfortable. You work for me and I respect that boundary. If you'd prefer to keep things strictly professional, I completely understand. Tessa studied her coffee cup. What exactly are you saying, Lucas? He took a deep breath. I'm saying I'd like to spend time with you outside of this professional relationship, but I don't want you to feel any pressure or obligation. Are you asking me on a date? Yes, if you're interested. Tessa was quiet for a long moment. I've been in this situation before with a client. It didn't end well. I had to drop them as a client and I lost the income. Lucas's heart sank. I understand, but, she interrupted, that situation was different. He saw me as a conquest, not a person. She met his eyes. You've never made me feel that way. Hope flickered in Lucas's chest. Is that a yes? A slow smile spread across Tessa's face. Yes, but I can't keep working for you if we're dating. It would blur too many lines. That's fair, though my penthouse will suffer terribly. Her laugh filled the kitchen. I can recommend several excellent cleaners. Their first date was the following Saturday dinner at a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. Tessa arrived wearing a simple green dress that brought out the gold in her eyes, her hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. Lucas had only ever seen her in work clothes, her hair pulled back. The transformation was stunning. You look beautiful, he said, rising as she approached the table. Thank you. It's nice to dress up occasionally. My usual uniform isn't exactly glamorous. Throughout dinner, Lucas discovered new facets of Tessa. Without the employer-employee dynamic, she was more relaxed, more willing to share her dreams and disappointments. She told him about growing up in a small coastal town, her parents' divorce when she was 12, and how she'd put herself through college working 2 jobs. What about you? She asked. How does someone end up owning a shipping empire before 40? Lucas smiled at her directness. Luck, timing, and obsessive work habits. I started with one small boat doing local cargo runs. The right opportunity came along, I took a massive risk, and it paid off. Just like that. Well, there were several years of 60-hour weeks, maxed-out credit cards, and ramen dinners in between. Tessa nodded approvingly. That sounds more realistic. Success stories that skip the struggle always sound suspicious. As they shared tiramisu for dessert, Lucas realized he was more comfortable with Tessa than he'd been with anyone in years. She didn't defer to him, didn't laugh too hard at his jokes, and challenged him when she disagreed. It was refreshingly honest. When he walked her to her car, the night air was crisp with early winter. Lucas hesitated, then said, I'd like to see you again. Soon. Tessa looked up at him, her expression soft in the streetlight. I'd like that too. Slowly, giving her time to pull away, Lucas leaned down and kissed her. Her lips were soft, her response gentle but certain. When they separated, Tessa's smile held a hint of wonder. Good night, Lucas. Good night, Tessa. Over the next few months, their relationship developed naturally. They discovered a shared love of old movies, spirited debates, and waterfront walks. Lucas introduced Tessa to sailing, and she taught him to make her grandmother's famous lasagna. They fit into each other's lives with surprising ease. There were adjustments, of course. Tessa was uncomfortable with Lucas's tendency to spend lavishly. I can pay my own way, she insisted when he tried to book a weekend getaway at an exclusive resort. I'm not with you for your money." "I know that," Lucas assured her, "but I enjoy sharing these experiences with you." They compromised. Lucas scaled back the extravagance, and Tessa allowed him to treat occasionally without protest. 4 months into their relationship, Lucas invited Tessa to accompany him to a charity gala. It would be their first appearance at a high-profile event where many of his business associates would be present. "Are you sure?" Tessa asked. "People will talk." Lucas squeezed her hand. "Let them. I'm proud to be with you." The night of the gala, Lucas waited in Tessa's modest apartment while she finished getting ready. When she emerged in a midnight blue gown, her hair elegantly styled, Lucas momentarily lost his ability to speak. "Too much?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "You're breathtaking," he finally managed. At the gala, Lucas watched with pride as Tessa navigated conversations with CEOs, politicians, and socialites with natural grace. She charmed his business partners, asked insightful questions about their shipping operations, and even impressed the notoriously critical chairman of the Port Authority. "Your girlfriend is delightful," his longtime client Margaret Dawson commented. "Refreshingly genuine. Where did you meet?" Lucas exchanged a glance with Tessa, who nodded slightly. "She used to clean my penthouse." Margaret's eyebrows rose, but she recovered quickly. "Well, she certainly cleaned up nicely." She winked at Tessa, and found herself quite a catch in the process. Later, as they danced, Tessa said, "I noticed you didn't hesitate to tell people how we met." "Why would I?" Lucas pulled her closer. "I'm not ashamed of how we found each other. Some men in your position might be, then they're fools." Lucas twirled her gently. "Besides, you saved me from living in squalor. It's practically a heroic origin story." Tessa laughed, the sound warming him from within. "My knight in dusty armor." 6 months into their relationship, Lucas knew he was in love with Tessa. Her practicality balanced his occasional impulsiveness. Her groundedness kept him connected to reality when business success threatened to isolate him. And her integrity reminded him daily of what truly mattered in life. One evening, as they prepared dinner in his penthouse now kept clean by a service Tessa had recommended, Lucas found himself watching her chop vegetables, humming softly to herself. "Move in with me," he said suddenly. Tessa's knife paused mid-chop. "What? Move in with me?" "This place feels empty when you're not here." She set down the knife, turning to face him fully. "Lucas, I love spending time with you, but moving in together is a big step. I know, and if you're not ready, I understand." He moved closer, taking her hands in his. "But I love you, Tessa." "I've never been more certain of anything." Her eyes widened. "You love me, completely, probably since you brought me soup when I was sick." A slow smile spread across her face. "I love you too, but what?" "I can't give up my independence." "I've worked too hard to build my business, my life." Lucas nodded. "I would never ask you to. Your independence is part of what I love about you." "And I can't live here," she continued, gesturing around the luxurious penthouse. "It's beautiful, but it's not me. I'd feel like a guest in my own home. Then we'll find a new place, together, something that feels like both of us." Tessa studied him, seeming to weigh his sincerity. "You'd be willing to leave this penthouse?" "Tessa, I'd live in a shoebox if it meant waking up with you every morning." He pulled her closer. "Home isn't about the square footage or the view, it's about who you share it with." Her expression softened. Okay. Yes, let's move in together, but we find a place that's ours, not yours or mine." Lucas lifted her, spinning her around the kitchen. "I love you, Tessa Bell." They found a charming 3-bedroom house in a peaceful neighborhood halfway between downtown and the coast. It wasn't as opulent as Lucas's penthouse or as cozy as Tessa's apartment, but it had character, potential, and room to grow. On moving day, as Lucas carried boxes into their new home, he marveled at how dramatically his life had changed in just over a year. From a bachelor living in a dusty penthouse to a man in love, building a future with someone who saw him not his wealth or status, but him. That evening, exhausted from unpacking, they sat on their new porch swing watching the sunset. Happy, Lucas asked, his arm around Tessa's shoulders. Very, she leaned into him. Though I'm having second thoughts about letting you unpack the kitchen. I found the measuring cups in with the bath towels. I was improvising. Clearly. She laughed, then grew thoughtful. Did you ever imagine this would happen when you called for a cleaner last year? Never. Lucas pressed a kiss to her temple. Best hiring decision I ever made. 3 months later, on a crisp fall evening reminiscent of the day they met, Lucas took Tessa sailing. As the sun began to set, painting the water in gold and crimson, he dropped to one knee on the deck. Tessa Bell, you walked into my life when it was at its messiest literally and figuratively. You brought order, laughter, and love I never knew I was missing. He opened a small velvet box, revealing a sapphire ring surrounded by small diamonds. Will you marry me? Tears filled Tessa's eyes. Yes, 1,000 times yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Lucas felt a sense of completeness he'd never experienced before. His success had given him financial security, respect in his industry, and material comforts. But Tessa had given him something far more valuable: a partnership based on mutual respect, genuine connection, and love that had nothing to do with his bank account. They were married 6 months later in an intimate ceremony by the harbor, with the ships of Lucas's fleet providing a fitting backdrop. Tessa had expanded her business to include a small team of carefully selected cleaners, allowing her to focus on management rather than day-to-day cleaning. At the reception, Lucas's best friend and business partner, Daniel, raised a toast. To Lucas and Tessa. Who would have thought that a broken vacuum cleaner would lead to such a perfect match? May your life together be as spotless as Tessa's cleaning and as successful as Lucas's business ventures. As they danced under the stars, Lucas held his bride close. Mrs. Vaughn, did I mention how beautiful you are today? Only about 20 times, Tessa laughed. But I don't mind hearing it again. You're beautiful, and I'm the luckiest man alive. Tessa's eyes, bright with happiness, met his. Who would have thought? The millionaire and his cleaner. Former cleaner, Lucas corrected. Current business owner, future mother of my children, and forever love of my life. I like the sound of that, she whispered, rising on her toes to kiss him. As the night continued around them, Lucas reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought them together. 1 year ago, he'd needed someone to clean his penthouse. Instead, he'd found someone who had cleaned up his life in ways he'd never anticipated, bringing order to chaos, light to darkness, and love where it was least expected but most needed. And that, Lucas knew, was worth more than all his millions combined.